Welcome to an explainer on eternal conflicts and escalating tensions in Korean Peninsula. The year 2020 marks the 70th anniversary of the beginning of Korean War. North Korea have recently blown up the Joint Liaison Office, which was opened in 2018 to facilitate inter-Korean relations. The explosion comes as tension between two sides escalate over a leafletting campaign. North Korea is furious with South for its failure to stop North Korean defectors from airdropping anti-regime propaganda. North Korean defectors want North Korean people to rise up against what they see as a corrupt Kim dynasty. Korea was a colony of Japan since 1910. After the end of Second World War and surrender of Japan, Korea was divided into two zones of occupation at 38th parallel line. USSR assumed the control of North and USA took charge of the South. This separation was meant to be temporary. The intention was for both the sides to help stabilize Korea and facilitate the removal of Japanese forces. But as Cold War began, the argument over Korea's system of government as a capitalist democracy or communist state became almost insurmountable. The Soviet Union foiled United Nations' effort to reunite the country under one government. In 1948, two separate forms of governments was established. South Korea is known as Republic of Korea and North Korea is called as Democratic People's Republic of Korea. In 1948, Syngman Rhee was elected as President of South Korea. In North, USSR refused to hold free election and the dictatorial regime of Kim Jong dynasty was installed. Kim Il-sung became the first in a series of dynastic rulers to hold power in North Korea to this day. By mid-1949, all the American and Soviet troops were removed from Korea, leaving the two rival governments on their own. The tensions grew on both the sides and each claimed to represent Korea as a whole. In 1950, in a surprise move, North Korea tried to take South Korea by military force, which led to Korean War. The north side was aided by China and USSR, while southern side was aided by United States and United Nations. The war finally halted in 1953 with Panmunjom Truce Agreement. Both the sides agreed to pull their military forces back, creating a buffer zone called as Demilitarized Zone or DMZ. The DMZ is approximately 250 kilometers long and about 4 kilometers wide. Inside the DMZ is a meeting point between two nations in the small joint security area where negotiations takes place. Though the zone is demilitarized, the border beyond the strip is one of the most heavily militarized borders in the world. 150 miles of electric fences, 2 million landmines, and thousands of opposing soldiers stand along the DMZ. Let's not forget that the Armistice Agreement of 1953 was never replaced by a peace treaty. So technically, both the countries are still at war with each other. Both the countries took a different trajectory in terms of system of government and method of development. North Korea officially describes itself as a socialist republic, but in reality it has degenerated into a totalitarian dictatorship. North Korea's economy is isolated and is tightly controlled. Though North Korea claims itself to be an embodiment of communism, it stands no way close to the standards of socialist state. It has often struggled to meet the basic needs of its people. South Korea, on the other hand, has developed into a democracy with stable economy. South Korea have joined the $1 trillion club of world's leading economy and enjoy membership to G20. Today, South Korea is 12th largest economy in terms of GDP and is home to world's most iconic brands like Hyundai Motors, Samsung Electronics, and so on. The contrast between two Koreas can be seen in all the aspects of Human Development Index. The Korean conflict is a part of major conflict between US and China. US and North Korea has a history of troubled relations since the end of Second World War. Asia Pacific has always been a region of huge importance for US. So US pursued a policy of active containment once the mainland China came under the influence of communism. US wanted democratic government in the entire Korean peninsula. The real support to North Korean regime comes from China. North Korea relies heavily on China for its economic and diplomatic assistance. Almost 90% of North Korea's trade is conducted with China. China's support to North Korea lies in its ideology. China doesn't want democracy or any kind of pro-US government on its borders. China feels that once the Kim dynasty is done away with, North Korea may again unite with South Korea, which would definitely increase the influence of America in its vicinity. North Korea is one of the countries with huge military expenditure. Because of its insecurity, North Korea started to develop nuclear weapon as a defense against its rivals like United States, South Korea and Japan. Due to its weak economy, North Korea seems to believe that the cost-effective way to address its security dilemma is to go for nuclear deterrence. Two factors have played a crucial role in North Korea's recent approach towards developing long-range missile and nuclear tests. First is US intervention in Iran, Iraq, Syria and Libya and so on have made North Korea to believe that US may attempt similar regime change in North Korea. The lessons from fatal end of Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi would also certainly dissuade Kim Jong-un from giving up his nuclear weapons at any cost. The second factor for recent North Korea's missile development program is lack of confidence in China. China always wanted North Korean regime to be under its control. China doesn't want North Korea to have a nuclear deterrence. To an extent, China loses its control on North Korea. So China even supported US-led sanctions against North Korea, which has only increased North Korea's insecurity. Unlike in the past, countries in the immediate neighborhood like South Korea, Japan and China are pressurizing United States and other stakeholders to successfully negotiate a deal with North Korea. In April 2018, the leaders of North and South Korea met on the South Korean side of Joint Security Area for Inter-Korean Summit. Kim Jong-un became the first leader of his nation in the history to set foot on South Korean territory after Korean War. Kim addressed the world audience for the first time, saying, "We are one blood, one nation and cannot be separated." Such striking symbolism was also followed by substance. The Panmunjom Declaration for Peace, Prosperity and Reunification of Korean Peninsula was adopted. In the joint agreement, both the leaders declared that by the end of the year, they will convert the Korean Armistice Agreement into a full peace treaty, formally ending the Korean War. They also pledged to work towards denuclearization of Korean Peninsula and increase economic ties. Both Koreas used to regularly send propaganda leaflets and loudspeaker broadcasts to the other side. But in Panmunjom Declaration, they agreed to stop such activities. After initial rhetoric by President Trump to decimate North Korea, he took a U-turn and started negotiating with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Both the leaders met at Sentosa Island in Singapore and Vietnam's capital Hanoi. In June 2019, Donald Trump became the first sitting president of US to set foot in North Korea. Trump met Kim Jong-un in demilitarized zone and agreed to resume the stalled nuclear talks. Kim Jong-un is looking for regime legitimacy and security. Once regime security is guaranteed, North Korea would reduce its dependency on China and would have a normal relationship with US and Japan. North Korea also wants removal of sanctions and financial assistance from them. North Korea's nuclear program is not just a challenge to US hegemony, but also creates an existential threat to US and its allies. So United States wanted a complete, verifiable and irreversible nuclear disarmament. But North Korea is not willing to accept such preconditions for talk. So US has softened its stand and have settled for credible steps towards disarmament. US pulling out of major international commitments, including Iran nuclear deal, has undermined its commitment. China wanted to make sure that it is at the center stage of any kind of negotiation. China has proposed a freeze for free strategy, according to which United States has to stop conducting military exercises with South Korea in return for North Korea stopping nuclear and missile testing. So China is clearly trying to use North Korea as a leverage against increasing US presence in the Pacific Ocean. South Korea wants denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, a friendly ties with its neighbors, and limited American presence for its security. As the nuclear threshold has been crossed, international sanctions and use of force against North Korea will not yield the desired result. Kim's policy is premised on the classical military strategy of escalating to de-escalate. Many analysts say that the staged provocation, like the recent bombing of Joint Liaison Office, are aimed at forcing concession from Seoul and Washington with regard to nuclear talks. As isolating North Korea proved to be ineffective, reviving the dormant six-party talks at the earliest and taking note of historic grievances of North Korea would be a better approach to resolve the conflict.